I've always been a fan of wild adventures, but this one I assure you wasn't one I wanted. Over the course of all my writings, you'll find what's left of the person who I used to be. 2 weeks ago on the night of my birthday, after a crazy night, I figured I might relax a bit. I threw myself in my futon and decided to start listening to some of the tracks I just made. I listened to one track that got me thinking. The track was Dreams I Can't Reach, and some of the lyrics made me a little unsure. They kind of went like this. I woke up one night in a daze, crazed with fear as I noticed these wires attached to my ears. I noticed men in lab suits with instruments. They told me to lie down and concentrate again, and that's when I awoke once more to find myself in my bedroom lying on my floor. As I listened, I started to remember the dream from the night, but the problem was it seemed more real than a dream. So I thought, well, maybe someone has a theory about this type of matter. So I went on a forum and published my dream for public view, and to receive comments to see if anyone else had a similar dream, and this is when it started to get really weird. About a week later, I had received a comment that kind of scared me. The poster was anonymous, but his comment was this.
The answer you seek is not one you want.
I immediately responded and said, "You've got my attention. I want to know what you know." An hour later, I got another response from the same person. They said,
What you're referring to in your dream was an experiment done to certain people, in which they are induced into a coma-like state. They relive their life according to what they program. They throw obstacles at you to see if you can accomplish their task. Anyone who completes everything and gets to the age where they were subject to the test will become.
That's when the post ended. I began responding, asking what they become. I waited 4 weeks and no response. I began to get scared. I started researching about the information that was being told to me, but every site with info on it was either shut down or the page was deleted. So I assumed I was fucked. But then it happened. I fell asleep that night and had the same dream, but awoke to the men in lab suits speaking, and what I heard was scary and unnerving.
He's catching on to these problems.
Someone's hacking in.
Then I woke up, but I wasn't in my room. I was in a psychiatric ward. I asked one of the staff members why I was here, and he responded, "Every night with you." Alright, look, this is the last time. Your parents were murdered, and their killer was never caught, and you insist it was men in lab coats. Now good night. I began to panic, not knowing what the hell was happening here. I took a deep breath, and I let go of it slowly, thinking on how I could make sense of all this. I sat on the cold plastic bedding on the twin-size bed in the dark, lonely room. I thought, what if I fell asleep? Would I wake up to my known reality? So I began to lie down and started to drift off into a drowsy state. I was asleep and sure of it, and saw once again the men in lab coats, but for some strange reason I didn't hear any noises. Then I awoke again, greeted by a voice. "Welcome back." I sighed with relief and say, "Thank God." I felt a sense of relief knowing that one voice was assurance enough to let me know everything is going to be okay. Yet I'm not sure if that is completely true due to recent incidents that have caused a great confusion this far into this. Am I ready for what's next? Or was this all a big dream from my big birthday party with all the shit I'd taken and done that night? So I pondered the thought that this may be a drug-induced dream making it lucid. Who knows? I looked around shocked that my idea really worked. I looked towards the right and saw my mom in the doorway of my bedroom. I looked in her direction and said, "How long have I been out for?" She looked toward me and laughed as if I was telling a joke. "Well, you went to your bed around 11 o'clock last night and keep mumbling something about a test. I assumed it was about school, but then you started mentioning men in lab coats. I thought it was a crazy dream. So I went to my bed and woke up around 5 a.m., and you were screaming. I went in and you suddenly stopped. It's 6 now, so about 5 hours, honey. I just wanted to know you were okay." I looked at her, and laughing in a fashion you'd see in a horror movie, replied, "Yeah, Mom, just had a bad nightmare. I'm sure I'm fine, and everyone has one now and then." She shrugged her shoulders, replying, "Well, okay. If you need to talk, I'm here, sweetie. Now get ready for school." I got up, looked around as if to let myself know everything's okay. It was only a dream. I walked over to the dresser to get my Beatles t-shirt and some American Eagle pants, the ones that are ripped on the knee. I couldn't find my Beatles t-shirt and thought maybe it wasn't a dream due to the fact that I hadn't worn it yet because it was brand new. I just put it away yesterday, so I ran downstairs and asked my mom, "Do you know where my Beatles t-shirt is?" She looked at me like I was crazy. "Beatles t-shirt? When did you get it? Because I don't remember you getting one." I had a confused look on my face, thinking that maybe I was still asleep, or maybe she just didn't remember getting it with me at Spencer's. I mean, it was a Beatles Revolver album cover t-shirt you don't just forget buying. I said, "Oh, I guess I was thinking of something from my dream or something." She looked at me and shook her head and went back to drinking a cup of tea she had just made, and I ran back upstairs and grabbed my John Lennon NYC t-shirt and walked to the shower. I turned the faucet handle and it was new looking. I began thinking, when did we get this? I brushed it off, saying to myself, if I keep questioning things, I won't have a reality anymore. So I just thought, I'll be fine. I just need to see one of my friends to feel reassured. I made it down to the bus stop 10 minutes early, and just as I walked over, I saw one of my friends, Justin Regagni. I sped over to him, hoping maybe I could talk to him about all this. I mean, after all, he's the go-to guy for these types of problems. "Justin, I was wondering, after our GED classes today, you think we could chill?" He looked at me in a concerned fashion and said, "Sir, man, what's going on?" I paused, trying to think of a reasonable explanation to tell him, but I couldn't at that point in time. Well, this is going to sound a bit strange, but, well, I've been having these weird experiences and dreams where, well, I'm in a laboratory and these men in lab coats are watching from behind this enclosed room with a huge window, and the last dream I had, one of the men said, "He's not ready. Someone's hacking in. Put him out again." Justin looked at me with a scared look as if he had just seen a ghost. "Well, man, I know you think these are dreams, but, well, there's more behind it than a simple dream. Look, we can't talk about this in public. So after classes, we'll meet up in my house, okay?" I looked at him, worried about the statement he just made, and glanced down for a minute, thinking about the commenter on the forum that day when he said it was more than a dream as well. "Yeah, man, I appreciate it. I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty nervous by what you just said." He looked at me and said with a stern face, "You're right to feel that way." The bus started to roll down the hill, and I began to pick up my backpack when I noticed this weird shining light coming from inside the bus. The light itself was very odd. It wasn't too bright, it was actually pretty dim. Just then the bus pulled up and the light was gone. So as I got in, I sat all the way in the back, and then I started to begin to feel a bit tired. So I rested my head on the cold metal in between the seat and the interior of the bus. I began to start dozing off, and that's when it happened. Something I had been dreading since this all started. I started feeling the way I got when I had the first experience with the psychiatric ward I was in when I awoke the first time, and yet I still feel this feeling. When I awoke, I knew what was going on from that second. It's happening again, and I know where I am. Again, I'm here. I look around at the place I've grown to be familiar with, but not happy to be in. This time around, it was a very different experience. There were no men in lab coats, just me laying on a cold hard metal tray that they would normally use for morgues. I had these wires attached to me still, so I began to remove them. As I removed the wires, I noticed that everything began to get brighter, as if the wires were like a shield, hiding the true essence of the room that I had become accustomed to. I got up and started looking around when a strange voice came over a speaker somewhere in the room.
"Welcome. I've been waiting for you. Look, we don't have much time before they get back and find out what I did."
I looked around kind of confused and responded back, "Well, I guess I don't have a choice at this point. Say what you need to say." My heart started racing, not knowing what the hell to expect this time.
"Well, look. You have for the past 6 years been under a psychoactive sedation drug that more or less puts you into a controllable coma state where they have you go through the obstacles they want you to go to. Once you complete them, you will be one of... Fuck! I gotta go. We'll speak more another time."
I was overcome with fear at the notion that the voice seemed as if they were about to be in a mess of trouble. "Well, hello there. Why aren't you on the table?" I responded back, Look, I don't know who the fuck you are or why I keep coming back to the same place every fucking time I sleep. I just want some fucking answers to why the fuck I've been here for 6 years of my life. That's all I want to know. And I want to go back to living a normal life and not this fucked up one you guys are creating for me. The voice laughed in a demeaning manner. Don't you remember? You wanted this and made this all possible. Without you, this place wouldn't be what it is today. My eyes lit up in horror, thinking on what he just told me. Look, I have no fucking idea what you're talking about, but fuck this, I'm done with this shit. I glanced over towards the enclosed room, but only to find a reflection of myself. And as I looked at the reflection, I noticed I wasn't 19 any longer. I was at least in my 40s. Well, I'm sorry to say, there's no going back. You're the last of 10 people. But I digress. I'll make it simple for you. You're not leaving this place until you finish. I began to get furious, and that's when 4 men came in, all in hazmat suits. I looked at them knowing what my fate was. You can't do this forever. I will get out of here, you son of a bitch. Just as I finished that sentence, that's when the men grabbed me, and all I remember was a sharp pain in my neck as if they stuck me with a needle. I began to get woozy, then eventually I passed out. That's when it started again. This time around, I didn't feel right. Something was wrong. Knowing what would happen would be a much-needed blessing at this time. I hope I get that soon, or I'm not sure I'll ever be okay. This time I hope I get what needs to be done to be finished, and yet I'm scared to know what is the real truth and answers in all of this bullshit. I woke up to the sounds of chimes from a bell. I looked towards the right and noticed a church with a church bell ringing loudly. Indicated it was time for Mass. I got up, but I wasn't in my mom's house. I was in my apartment rented when I was 18, and I wasn't quite sure what was going to happen this time. I walked around my room and seemed as if I had just moved in. I remember around this time when I was moving in, Justin was going to come by and visit, so I waited for him to open the door and surprise me. He was always the type of guy to surprise me to make me happy. Just as I was thinking about that, I realized I had a black suit on, as if I had just come from a funeral or going to one. Right then I received a call.
Chris, where are you?
I was confused. Why? What's wrong? There was a pause on the phone like I had just disrespected the person on the phone.
Well, I figured since you're supposedly Justin's friend, you'd be here after what happened.
I sat down in terror, hoping she wasn't saying what I think she was saying. Look, I'm not feeling right today. Can you remind me what happened? She sighed in a slow manner, as if what she was going to tell me was going to crush my heart.
Don't you remember anything? Justin died in a car crash. You were in the crash and you survived with minor injuries. Justin, well, this is hard to say.
I looked around in sorrow, knowing what I was being told, and responded, Please tell me. I need to know. I started to hear her crying softly over the phone.
He was driving, and you guys were drunk and high, and he crashed into a light post. And his seatbelt held him, but his head went through the windshield and decapitated his head.
All I heard after that was her crying severely, and I couldn't figure out a way to comfort her. I started going into shock after hearing all of this. This was way too much for me to handle with everything I've been going through. Look, everything is going to be okay. We'll get through this. Justin was a great person, and I have to man up and take the blame for all of this, because I shouldn't have let him drive, and now life is worthless. I chose drugs over a friend, and I don't deserve to live with what I've done. There was a silent pause, and then she hung up. The fact that I'm being thrown into all of these situations was hard enough, but to lose a lifelong friend due to stupidity is one thing I cannot handle. I looked around once more and noticed a letter unopened from Justin. I sat there for a minute just looking at the name on the letter, thinking back on all the shit we did together, and now all I'm left with is memories of the past paradise. So I sat and began to wonder why, if there was a God, why would they make someone go through these horrible experiences? Did God create us because there was a flaw in him and he couldn't feel emotion, so he created us so he could try and learn emotion? Again, I'm sitting rambling to myself, nothing but unanswerable questions that I may never find out. The fact of even knowing I lost someone, more or less everything in the blink of an eye, and I don't even know what, why, or who is doing this, but I will find out, and when I do, they'll pay for the death of my friend. Even if they just fabricated it, the fact I still can actually feel the emotion I'm going through, which, by the way, would be as if you saw your friend get shot and did nothing to stop when you could. You may never know what this feels like, and I hope you never do. The feeling is the darkest feeling you could possibly think of, and I wish that on no person, not even on my worst enemies. I kept perfectly still, thinking on everything that just seemed to happen for no reason at all. Looking down from the letter, I noticed that there was a broken picture with a little bit of blood, as if someone had punched it out of rage. I looked at the photo and realized it was me and Justin back in Haver Middle School, and a strange sense of relief with a little bit of depression came over me, as if to say soon this will be done, and you'll see the people who have caused you this pain. To an equal extent, I felt the depression because how do I know they didn't fabricate this event? I mean, my whole look on reality at this point is diminishing to where I may never know what is real or not again. As I began looking at the letter again, I realized this may be the one message he left me to help me out, and I damn sure am not going to stop fighting this battle. I sighed in a sort of nostalgic manner, recalling all the crazy shit me and Justin went through, and now, well, I'm left with just the reminiscence of yesteryear and nothing good in my eyes to look forward to. I rubbed my fingers over the name on the card as if to say my last and final goodbye, not knowing what the future holds in store for me next. I slid my finger under the back flap of the envelope. I began opening the letter and was hoping for some information to help me out of this mess. Instead, I got this confusing message. When you awake, go towards the hall near the room with the big open window. Right then and there, I should be working on a computer. I won't have much time before they realize what I've done, but please trust me and go there. I'll be waiting there. I kept reading the letter over and over again to see if I could get any ideas. I mean, was he speaking of a video game or my dreams? I wasn't too sure, so I said, well, I don't have a video console, so it can in my mind only mean one thing. The dreams. So as I lay down on my bed with the letter in hand, a lot of things began to go through my mind. Why was I the one going through all of this and not someone else? I also have to wonder what they meant by, I am the reason this is all possible. So many questions, not any answers for them. That's when I decided it would be best if maybe I just laid down and tried to go through what I have been, hoping maybe, just maybe, I might be able to stop all of this finally. I began to feel drowsy with the notion of hoping to see my friend once again. Laying down, I started drifting more and more off into a REM mode. I felt as if I had just taken 20 Xanax bars and 3 Oxy 80s and snorted 4 huge rails of coke all at once. That's when it began to start becoming more apparent that this was an induced state of consciousness. Starting to drift off, I felt as if there would be an answer, and though I may be parted, there's still a chance I can finally let it be. That's the song that kept playing in my head, was Let It Be. But I felt it was the wrong song to be stuck in my head. I felt as if the song should have been Happiness and a Warm Gun, due to the fact that I felt estranged from the emotions that I had at the time. Beginning to drift off in the unknown land I have been going to for a long time. To be honest, it has felt like years when it's probably been nothing more than a couple weeks, months. Shit, I'm not sure what the fuck to think anymore. I woke up in the lab once again, remembering what was written and left for me. I just wanted answers. So I began remembering the letter and the message and started walking out of the lab, and surprisingly, no men in lab coats this time. As I exited the room, I noticed the room Justin was referring to, so I proceeded to the room with caution. When I had gotten to the door, I saw a couple of weird-looking laptops. I looked to the right in the window and saw Justin on the computer and proceeded to walk in. I was very nervous for the fact I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I walked in a cautious state, thinking there may be something that I'd feared from the beginning. The same question I kept repeating to myself. Do I want to know what reality is anymore? So far, this entire journey has been a clusterfuck of disasters with a sprinkle of chaos and a dash of torment on my soon-to-be rested soul. Opening the door with confidence that I'd be okay at the end of all this, I held my breath and prepared for the worst. As soon as I walked in, I saw Justin and right away said, "Okay, you said you didn't have much time, so what's the plan and what the hell is going on?" A dead silence swept the room. "Well, for one, I'm not exactly who you think I am. Look, I'm going to be brief. My name is Michael Nurmak. I'm an intelligence agent here at this company. Before I go any further, though, I'm going to explain a little. You are the creator of this place, and I was told, as everybody was, we are not under any circumstances to help you nor resuscitate you back to this state of consciousness. Your mission, you set by yourself, was to see if people could relive events of their life with minor adjustments. The problem was the people who took control after you went under decided that idea wasn't what they wanted. So instead, they developed a new idea. One where the subjects would relive their lives but with major obstacles, such as friends dying and other such things, to see if you could cope with the obstacles, and anyone who completed the task to the controller's liking was assigned a position in the New World's army. Look, that's all I can say before we get caught. Just know in these dreams, the one person who seems to be a bit weirder than usually is me, especially if they know what you're talking about, okay? Alright, so what should I do now? Just go with the flow. What does that mean? Look, I can't explain any further. Just go back into the room you were in and lie down and go back in. It'll be over soon. I looked in horror, thinking, why the fuck would I go back in if I'm out? Well, some questions are better left unasked. I proceeded back into the room. Okay, now lie down and I'll put you under. Okay, then what? He was silent. Then I heard a faint whisper saying,
It's almost over.